Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Commander Jaime channel, where we take you at a nice, intimate, revealing look behind the Blue Wave deck.
Awesome for the intro. Thank you, Shiiga. I appreciate you for even hopping on the channel. And today is going to be a little bit of a different video. So I recently had published my Blue Wave deck profile for premium. And I know you and I have been DMing over the past weeks, if not months at this point, coming up with a list. And I wanted to make this kind of like, you know, what's the difference between Blue Wave and Thalos, but also like talk some things that maybe not as common as people would think in Blue Wave.
Yeah.
So did you want to start us off somewhere?
Well, I think let's just start off with, you know, why did we build Blue Wave over Thalos? Well, not to say that we did, it's why would you play it?
Right.
To me, it was, we've been playing a lot of Thalos. And after so long, you just kind of go, okay, I'm kind of beaten, kind of worn down by this. It's the same old, even if the matchups change it, it's still the same old Thalos, Lambro shenanigans, or Thalos history collection shenanigans, and so on and so forth. So Blue Wave was a chance for me to look at something that's still Aqua Force, but it was different. Right. In just a simple notion of it's a restanding Vanguard.
Yes.
And I find it funny because as I was building, going through my phases, it was one of those things where I would say, I realized we have a restanding Vanguard at least 2 points in the game. Even before Stride. We've got a grade 2 that's a restanding Vanguard.
Yep. And Reprise.
Tetradrive is a restanding Vanguard.
Yep.
And then we go into our Strides, Flood Hazard, and Tetraboil are restanding Vanguards.
Yes.
So I laughed at some point it just becomes restanding Vanguard that deck. Or Overlord. Yep. Or Aqua Force Overlord.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons where people like it's Overlord, but in Aqua Force.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
And to add to that too, I think the main appeal that I also kind of like would lean into it, like it takes advantage of a card like Yay Wandering Souls.
Yeah, it really does.
Just having the extra drive check in each Vanguard attack is exciting. It's fun because you never know what you drive checked, and when you do drive check well, it's pretty rewarding in those moments.
Oh yeah, someone had mentioned to me that it's one of two things. You either high roll on Tetradrive and you blow your opponent out of the water, or they survive it and then you're still playing regular Aqua Force.
Right. You could fall back to stuff like Gembold too.
Yeah, you can fall back to Gembold. You can open up with Pure Yargis.
Yeah, as well. Yep.
There's
flexibility.
There's a lot of flexibility. Whereas, you know, with Thalos, I'm like, it's as varied as all the options are, it's still very, you know where you go.
Right.
Whereas, you know, and even with the other Thalos deck that you posted where you added Valios as another ride target to give you access to Flood Hazard and, well, you chose Flood Hazard, but Flood Hazard or Tetraboil, whatever the audience chooses.
Yep.
It's you got an option. You just gave yourself another option.
Yeah.
But even then, if you don't do that, you're still playing a very straightforward Thalos deck, which it works. But let's call it spade a spade. Thalos works.
Yeah. And I think like it's a good thing you brought up Valios too, because that's another like card that makes it different too, because you can lock your opponent at 11k and eliminates triggers, and then of course people's nightmares, the OT as well.
Oh yeah, when you can look at your opponent and tell them, hey, you're at 4 to 5 damage. Yeah, you can't trigger out of this. What do you mean I can't trigger? You can't trigger out of this. How many attacks do you got? Well, do you have a Hanali on the board? Well, no.
Yes.
Then you're getting above 5. If you got a Hanali on board, it's, well, you're getting 5, and 2 of them are Vanguards.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, Hanali, because it doesn't count Vanguard to Vanguard. It only counts Regards to Vanguards.
Yeah, so in my play test, and I'm like, it's a way if somebody says, Hanali lock you. Okay, I'm just going to do 2 Vanguard swings.
Right. Especially like in Thavas when you have a restander that you're like prepping up, essentially. Especially if you're able to stack like power or maybe like a critical trigger, Hanali really just kind of stops you in your tracks.
Yeah, in most cases, Hanali would literally just stop you in your tracks. And like, dang, I can't do my multi-attack. Well, here in Blue Wave, you go, oh, I can't multi-attack? Who told you that?
Right. You still have that pressure there, and because Vanguard swings are still threatening, because you never know. You get a drive check that gets a crit or an OT as well. And I think you're playing the red OT, actually. Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, shoot. It's supposed to be the stoicheia one. But, I mean, I've tested with the red OT, the blue OT, and the stoicheia OT. I've tested with all.
Gotcha. So you would prefer Blessed Favor still as well?
It's a toss-up between Blessed Favor and Idasvaro.
Okay.
Is that the red one? Idasvaro?
Evolnut. I just call it red OT, blue OT.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so red OT basically says you if you check it on like a Tetra drive and you have still like say have a like one restanding rear guard, or you miscounted, or even you just thought, I'm only gonna get 5 attacks. That's fine. You red OT and one of those units gets an extra attack and it's like, oh, I think I might get to 7.
Right.
And obvious title assault shenanigans and Voivo shenanigans, freestanding shenanigans.
Yeah, and you have repress. You could fall back too as well.
Yeah, and bringing up the restanders. Yeah. You made a valid point to me when you were prepping for Worlds earlier last year.
Yeah.
And for this year, where you stepped away from restanders for a while because with the Davos build that you took to Worlds, it was very much more token focused, heavy hitters, high swingers, and they were just big. And because you could restand them with the Vanguard's skills anyway, it was like, I'm good.
Right.
Well, I kind of took that approach here where it was like, okay, how do I come back to the restanders? And for me, it was, how do I make the restanders worth it? Yeah. And that's when I started looking at the gift itself, which I guess brings us into like maybe why would you play Accel 1 over Accel 2?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Accel 2 is good. You get draws. You got some power buffs, so if there's some missing pieces, you can look into those pieces. But then, and it probably grants you some survivability, but what's after that?
True. And I think, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're playing, big power hitters, they make up that fact that you win Accel 2. But if you're playing restanders, they need the extra power.
Yeah, they can only get so big, and cards like Tidal even get weaker.
Yeah, Tidal gets weaker. Foivos gets a little bit bigger, but not by a huge margin.
Nah, it only makes 11k, which is not a great number anymore.
It's not a great number unless you went Valios Revive or even strode a Blue Wave on top of Valios to make the 11k worth it.
That's true. Yeah.
So, that's the only time the 11k is worth it.
Right. Fair point.
And then they can't just drop like a 15k shield. When I say 21, they got to drop, 20. So give me that. So give me that Guardian Shield, boy.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Which with Accel 1 and Accel 2, it makes sense because the first time, ideally you want to write Tetra Drive, whether you're going first or second. So you get 1 gift. And then your second turn that you can write another grade 3 would be Valeos, which doesn't even have a gift to begin with. So you really don't miss out on Accel 2. You just really miss out on that 1 card that you get from Accel 2. So depending on the game state, you can go either way. Ideally, just like you mentioned, Accel 1 just helps a lot of the restanders if possible. Even Baragios as a grade 1 is a free restander on its own too.
Yeah.
With enough power.
17 on a 19Ks. Sure, it's like what? Still a 10k guard, but 1 trigger and that's no joke. One 10k trigger on a Baragios, and it went from 17 to 27. And it's I can still guard with a 15. Oh, wait a minute.
Right. And it's really cool with the synergy with the deck because it stands as many times as your Vanguard stands, essentially. So most of the time it will be twice it'll attack, but if you're on the Tetra Drive turn, there's a possibility that it can attack 3 times in total as well.
Well, if you run the red OT, it attack 4 or 5. God knows how many.
Oh, fair enough, yeah. If you drive check it at the right point, that's a good point.
Yeah. The only other thing, so like comparing the two decks, it's for the most part they're the exact same deck. Given the restander you chose was, I believe, Terrific Coil.
Yes.
And you went with Eliana for more reoccursion to make sure you get pieces back.
Yeah. It's also another body because you could play like Spiritual Body Condensation or Force and Resentment, but those cards are 1-for-1s.
Yeah, they're 1-for-1s and they're not bodies on the board.
Right. And then also you would rather use Wandering Souls that same turn, which you could only play one order per turn at this point in Vanguard too.
Yeah. And even with all those orders, and even with the orders, I would say there's been moments where I had the choice to either stride, or if I have Ye Wandering Souls plus one other order, which is either itself, a quick shield, or even Elementaria. Yes, right. I'm that kind of nuts where I would risk it for the biscuit. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, why not? In that time, it's like, I get 3 Vanguard swings, 7 drive checks. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to draw enough hand and potentially get other cards like your Pascals, and you're also playing the Yorgos. Okay, cool.
Actually, Yorgos was a new addition after play testing with a buddy, another buddy of mine. Yeah. And it was a huge toss-up because Yorgos opens up my board a little more because of Corvette, because it's a 13K body. I could just slap it on a Yorgos, and now I got a 13K body, punch it from the back row. Or something even cheekier, you can put it on a Propulsion Dragon, put it in the front, swing with it, flip it to the back, and now it can attack from the back row itself.
Oh, because it's moved, so it still keeps abilities.
Yep, it's moved, and it's
pretty cool. Yeah, that's nutty. You could actually combine that with the Alexandros play, I think, to like take advantage of that more.
Oh yeah, terrible.
So there's plenty of options to play around with the multi-attack aspect. You got an Arsenal Fleet as well. That helps. Yeah. So a lot of Blue Wave, if people haven't noticed, there's just a lot of Restanders and a lot of like potential swappers as well.
Yeah. And even with all the other cards, like you got Galliot, which is a swapper. Old Gallius, new Gallius are both Restanders. Technically speaking, new Gallius could work, but only if the opponent's Vanguard was not initially at 11.
Yeah.
Because the condition for his skill to restand, and same with new foilers, is it just has to see that the Vanguard's power is different from its original.
Yep.
And if its original power is 13 or 12, and it drops to 11, they're alive.
Then it works. Right. It works on these turns. Yep.
Yeah.
But now with History Collection, there's a lot of decks that are back to the 11 case. Yep.
Yeah. So those are it.
Yeah. And I think for the most part, we covered a lot of the differences, the comparisons. I think one thing that people don't know, or maybe it's not as obvious, is that there's a little bit of a learning curve with Aqua Force, but even with Blue Wave, because if you play Thavas, you may be tempted to play in a similar manner. But there are some key differences that you kind of have to prioritize with Blue Wave a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, there's some key differences. The bigger, like, obviously, yes, you can for both decks, you can just default to standard Aqua Force. That's not wrong. That's not a wrong idea.
Right.
But with Blue Wave, you have to take into consideration that you do have a restanding Vanguard, which means, wait, I can put on more pressure with my Vanguard, even if I don't have the orders. In my case, and I'm still I'll admit that I'm wishy-washy about it, is that I have 3 Brutal Troopers because I have 9 crits in the deck now. At least in mine, it's 9 crits. Because it's 3 Thavas crits for the defensive draw, 3 Stride crits, because in all honesty, if I'm gonna use Arsenal Fleet, I do have reusable Stride fodder.
Right, because it revives itself back to hand. Yeah.
And even for those that want to play Bright Shooter, I believe it's called.
Yeah, the grade 1. Yep.
Yeah, you can nag any grade 3 you want, which could be Tetra Drive, which could be Valios. Arsenal Fleet or even a Heel Guardian.
Yeah.
It's flexible, but given that the great ones are tight, you really gotta commit to that.
Yeah, and it also depends on what you prioritize. I think you and I kind of prioritize just being able to take advantage of this card whenever possible. So then our deck is also geared to help promote this grade 3 turn potentially.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you want to include the grade 1 Bright Shooter, it works on 4th battle regardless if it's, you know, Generation Break live or not. But it's just a booster. It's not like a Restander like Baragios or a swapper like Propulsion. So like these help promote those like turns that need attacks essentially for your Tetra to really shine essentially. Yeah. And so the learning curve is basically like getting to know when to call certain rearguards to promote your Vanguard essentially.
And also being aware of what rearguards you have, because there have been cases where I don't have enough blue wave rearguards, or I don't have a blue wave rearguard to proc off, say, a flood hazard. So it's like, I gotta change tactics here. Whereas everybody would just default to like, oh, Alexandros or all the other guys. It's like I have access to Tetra Boil, which is still flood hazard, but it's a cheaper, more cost efficient versus, you know, like flood hazard. Sure, let's say his GB3 isn't live the first attack, but it's live the second. I get 4 checks on both of them, but in one of them I discard 2 rather than discarding 1, and at least getting, you know, 3 cards in my hand.
And Tetra Boil is generic. It doesn't care what rearguard attack the Vanguard on the 4th battle.
It cares about the hard, so that's specific. But
as long as you get to that point, is what matters.
As long as you get to, but if you get to 4th battle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who swings.
And if you so happen to have your Wandering Souls, this becomes triple drive, which is actually pretty good as well. Triple drive, or, you know, quintet drive. And then twin drive.
Twin drive. I mean, sure, we could argue it's one more card out of the deck, but it's also, you know, we still have the issue of deck out.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we still have the issue, that issue.
Yeah, and Tetra can deal with disruptive plays a little bit better because you're not so reliant on a blue wave. You can attack with anything.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's just, I think that's about it. About really the nuts and bolts. And, you know, we've talked back and forth, like day in, day out. We even have our arguments. But even still, I would call that, you know, friendly Aqua Force
sessions.
Friendly Aqua Force banter, because I'll admit, not a lot of players really play Aqua Force like that.
Yeah, especially for a deck like Blue Wave. It's kind of like, I would say, the second popular archetype for Aqua Force. Probably most people would agree. And I think what we can wrap up with the video is like, what's something that we each want for future support that would help Blue Wave out?
Well, I have 2 things.
Okay, you go first then.
All right, so Blue Wave specific, a grade 2 version of G Barachios.
Okay.
Because that would, one, eliminate the need for this Barachios. You know, I like him. He's still a good boy. But it opens that space up, and if it doesn't cause a counterblast, you know, I can replace Foivel's lickety split.
Are you talking about Fuevos or are you talking about Galeas?
No, I'm just like, get a grade 2 version of Baragio, but
kind of like promote him.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
Promote him from a grade 1 to a grade 2. We need a grade 2 version of that. Like, we just need a grade 2 version of Baragios. And let's say it does do a top 7 search. Let's say top 7 for a grade 3 Blue Wave. That way, no matter which one you get, it'll do something. No matter which one you get, it's worth it. But then actually, now think about it. If they made a V version, then it'd have to do something for, you know, Valios too. Dang, that's a weird one.
Yeah, V Valios didn't work out so good. So if they retrained the V one, that'd be great.
well, and then the other thing is more so generic Aqua Force. We need a generic restanding Vanguard. I'm just calling it a generic restanding Vanguard, to where no matter which version of Aqua Force I'm playing, I have a generic restanding Vanguard that can just run. Sure, it might take away from, you know, Flood Hazard, Tetra Boil, but you run those with Blue Wave because you can still take advantage of Valios locking power.
Yeah.
Whereas the generic one would just be, it's generic. You know, get to the, it could probably even have a skill just like Tetra Drive, where it gets to the 4th battle, it can restand, gets to the 7th battle, beyond.
It could properly scale, right?
Yeah, it'll probably scale.
I gotcha. I think that's fair because there's like Shadow Paladin got a generic restander recently. You got OTT that has a generic restander, and there's so many other decks that have generic restanders. So I can see that for sure. Yeah. For me, I think to keep the spirit of Blue Wave, have a grade 2 that is a restander, but it costs a Soul Blast that is not once per turn. And a good example would be with the recent Shiranuri deck set support. They got Seikai and Genkai reprints. And as long as you have like the Blue Wave name, when your Vanguard attacks, Soul Blast, restand, essentially. As simple as that. And I think that it would alleviate the Counterblast issue that it can have.
But it still pulls Soul.
What's that?
But it still pulls Soul.
Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, because I noticed with Blue Wave, it can be a little bit Counterblast heavy compared to Favas, for example.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
And what's really cool is that if you do restand, again, assuming that you have enough Soul to pay for it.
Yeah. So I would say we both technically have the same idea, which is, you know, a grade 2 that can stand when the Vanguard stands. I just want mine to be exactly like Baragio's. Just do it.
I can see that too. Yeah. And I think you said it too already. As long as it's just like simple condition, like just Blue Wave name. Don't put like 2 Blue Waves on the Vanguard circle. Don't be like original Blue Wave in the Stride name, or your base power is different.
Or just when your Vanguard when your Blue Wave Vanguard stands this unit.
Yeah, exactly. Just leave it as that point. So
I don't need no power. I don't need nothing. I don't need power. Just
we can figure out the rest with the rest of the deck build.
A 14k body on an Accel 2. 19k body with Accel 1 that can restand and punch again when the Vanguard swings at grade 2. That's it.
Exactly. End of story at that point. Awesome. It was good chatting about Blue Wave and kind of comparing a little bit with Favas. I know people are curious. And again, if you guys are still watching, this is totally different type of video. I think we just wanted to like express our thoughts, also kind of explain the differences, but at a more slower pace. And hopefully the deck lists help a little bit just to illustrate some points too.
And I would definitely say that I would definitely say if, you know, if the people like this kind of behind the scenes thing, do it with other people. Do it with, you know, Solemn Vanguard. Do it with Different Fight. Do it with the Scholar. Do it with those guys.
Yeah, with any like type of video, if people want to see more like behind the scenes, I think that would be cool. So I mean, just provide your feedback in the comments too. Let me know your guys' thoughts too if you like this type of content, and then we could always like do this later on as well.
And for those that are wondering, it's Double Hat Gang because he's my man. Because we all know Commander Jaime, the amigo. This is just for the spirit of Greedon because my man been winning, and I love Greedon.
Yes, Greedon Masquez is making strides during these BCSs for sure.
Too bad he about to get dominated.
And no pun intended. Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the channel. And for the viewers, until the next one, amigos. Bye.